for Mark to finish chewing his big chocolate surprise.
I'm good. I'm good.
All
right.
I like the way he did that. Wait, hold on. Do that again.
Well, you heard that?
Yeah, put that stick in your mouth.
Anyways, welcome everyone to Deck Swabbers.
Sorry. Candid starts. We love those.
Candid starts. Holy shit! Welcome back, everyone. It's we're keeping to our actual schedule this time to do bi-weekly. Last time was special occasion because we had a ban list and OP09 reveals are just crazy and stuff, and I just want to check in.
Yeah, we
with
had to
everyone.
capitalize.
We had to capitalize.
We had to capitalize. Come on now.
I want to check in with everyone. How are we doing? Right, these past 2 weeks. How's it been?
Dude,
I think we've all been doing pretty good.
Dude.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm kind of burnt out of this format now.
I'm over it, dude. Where's OPOA, dude?
Yeah, I want a new format.
At least it's like, what, like 2-3 weeks before the format ends, and not like a month and a half. Because like,
That's fair, yeah.
we talked about before, like this has been a pretty diverse format. Today was like the first day I went to locals without Perona, and I felt like I did so terribly. And I'm just like, dude, I should have kept playing Perona. Dude.
Wait, what did you play today? Actually,
I played Zoro Sanji, and I'm like, I'm cooking.
He's cooking.
Yeah, I was not, dude. I burnt down the kitchen today. I don't know what happened, but
Never
the
cook
kitchen-
again.
never cook again. But yeah,
Anju just looked at you and said, "Get out of the kitchen."
if any listeners follow my Twitter, y'all know I've been going like X1 at locals with Perona like for the past like week and a half, and it's like I don't know why I stopped playing it today. But it'd be like that sometimes. I just wanted to experiment a little bit.
Yeah,
for sure.
Right. Sorry, I'm gonna have you guys to start off here. My dog's barking outside. I'm gonna let him in the middle of the recording. But let's go ahead and talk about, since we're getting tired of this format, right? What do we want to play next?
Yes. Okay. So I really, really want to play Marco into OP08 format, because I genuinely think that when you streamline the deck and you cut certain like tech choices and go exclusively for removal, you're actually just playing Sakazuki, because it's like you get to filter through your deck with leader ability, and then you get to like replace that card or just draw it next turn and then replace that card again, because you're always going to see a new card every turn. You draw a card, use leader ability, that's a new card. So if you need that card, you don't have to bottom deck it. You could just be like, I'll put it back on top, and then I'll draw it again next turn, and then I'll draw a new card, and then just keep doing that and cycle that way. Also, Sanji into Rayleigh on 10 Dawn is disgusting. And then even just leader ability into Rayleigh if you're going first on your 9 Dawn curve is huge, because you can KO like a 7k body and then minus 3k to something else. You know what I mean? So because Rayleigh kills a 5k power or less, so you could be like leader effect -2, Rayleigh -2 to that, -3 to that thing, and then if it's like a 9k body or something, it becomes a 6, and it's just very very control heavy, which I enjoy. It's why I play Perona. I'm like, dude, you got a board? Not anymore. Get rid of it. It's like, you got a board? I got a board. Watch this. So that's definitely the deck, like the premier deck that I'm gonna play OP08, and I hope everybody steals my list and goes, he's cooking, but we'll see. I don't know. I thought I was cooking today. We might have to see about that.
It's funny. No, dude, I think I'm with you on that. I love control, which just makes me sound like the worst kind of player. But
male manipulator.
No, because like OPO1, right? Like I played Green Kid, and that was like a form of control, or like playing very defensively with the 8-drop kid.
Don't remind me. When Blue didn't have Red Rock, don't remind me.
Oh gosh, no, you needed a Tom Jet pistol back in those days, but no, it's like I love forms of control. Like, oh, I can rest your characters, and get rid of him. Or I guess it's less control. I like more removal, which is also a form of control, just board control in general, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is why I play a lot of Lucio, which is I fucking love that deck right now. I am getting kind of tired of the OP07 format, and it's been the same thing. Like, I love the list, but it's like, all right, man, It's time
I
to
want something
evolve.
new.
Time to sharpen the tools a little bit, right?
Yeah, go back,
to the tool,
go back in the
back
drawer.
into the shed.
Back into the shed, yeah. It's like I'm excited for Lucci and OPO8 mainly because you get tools such as Jack, you get 9-drop Kaido, you get the other 5-drop 2K for CP9.
Oh yeah, who's who?
Yeah, who's who.
Oh, okay.
Jack, that's right.
And then on play KO's a card. Ugh,
Mm-hmm.
disgusting.
And then you also get without the stage, you also have access to like more stuff to play with, like which is what I already was doing.
Yeah.
By only running 2 stage in my list for OPO7. The Rush Lucci, the fucking Stussy or Isho, or when I first made the decks, like playing Sakazuki and Lucci, or it's just like fun creative ways to build Lucci rather than just having the standard, oh, you need 4 stage, you need 4 of this, right? And it's like, no, like branch out a little bit. Rush Lucci takes more games than you'd expect, okay?
Yeah.
6 for 7 Rush is good.
Yeah.
I swear to God. I swear.
It's the move.
Let me show you.
It's not copium.
7, baby. 7.
7 with a knee.
Equals me, Rob Lucci.
I'm
Yeah.
like seriously thinking like, oh, maybe I can do like
Up at the team.
Air Door Lucci, at some point. Bring it
Someone
back.
was testing that, yeah.
It was me.
Adore Gucci.
It was
Yeah.
me. It doesn't work.
No,
I thought it
it's way too
Doesn't
high roller.
doesn't work, dude.
But it's just like
Let's go game.
there's so many more fun ways to build Lucci, and there's so much experimentation that you can do. You shouldn't just like net deck something and then be like, oh, my mills were bad. This deck sucks. No, it's like it's literally how you build the deck on your own. How you add your own little salt and pepper
Spice.
there too. Yeah, your own little spice that makes
Exactly.
it good. That's why I guess I
Hey.
resonate so much with the deck because I kind of made it my own with all these
Yeah.
other changes.
Yeah, and then on top of that, I mean, even in the last podcast, we were talking about how you just went X3 with your own list. You know what I mean? 2 stage,
regionals.
Rush Lucci, and like that's an achievement, man. You know what I mean? Not a lot of people can say that they've added their own tech into a deck and then had it work as well as X3. 10 rounds, bro. Your deck worked 70% of the time out of 10 rounds.
That's actually pretty good, yeah.
That's-
I never
that's
thought about
really
it that
good.
way. I just thought,
That's
shit,
really
I made
good.
1X and 3, I got
The deck
106th
worked.
place. I didn't make top 32, top 64. But no, actually,
No,
yeah, that's a really good way to put it. It's
Your deck works 70% of the time, bro. Out of 10 rounds, you know what I mean?
mhm.
Out of 4, like 80% out of 5 rounds is also very good. You know what I mean? So it's just like when you look at it that way, you did twice the amount as like a 5-round tourney, and you got only 10% less than someone going 4-1 in a 5-round tourney.
Mhm.
So it's like the numbers don't lie. Your deck is good. So
That's true.
I cooked.
Props to you, brother. props to he cooked, unlike me.
Yeah. For me, I'm definitely like committing still to the Lucci because it's just I don't know that leader. If I can still play
You need
Lucci
to
in
cook
OPO9,
again. You need to cook
maybe I can cook again. Yeah, I'll have to see. Maybe I'll add a second Rush Lucci because I feel like these
because you can
formats.
filter it out when you don't need it.
No,
with
yeah, exactly. I can filter it out if I don't need it, but I probably just still need the removal for it, like running Soap Sheep and probably another Ice Age.
Ooh, Soap Sheep.
Yeah, Soap Sheep is good for when you go first and you have Rob Lucci and Soap Sheep, and you're like, oh, we get 2.
And when your opponent is a deck that goes wide, it replaces stage in that manner. But also you get to -2 cost to 2 bodies.
Mhm.
And this is what I've been telling people is that like stage ban doesn't really do a lot because if your locals is going tall, you just replace stage with more Ice Age or add in Ice Age if you weren't already playing it. And then if your locals is a bunch of decks that go wide like Dofi, you just play Soap Sheep. And then that way you get -2 cost on everything. And then you use leader effect to minus it by 1 more. That's a 2-in-1 for sure.
Mhm.
So I definitely think that like people are underestimating the power of Lucci, and maybe I'm overestimating the power of Marco. But I love that deck. It's so good. It's so good.
Marco looks like so much fun. I'll definitely build him at some point.
But yeah, what about you, Mark? What are you feeling for OPO8?
Not gonna lie, I've had lots of issues of what I wanted to play entirely because it's not that I have a particular playstyle. but more so it's not that I can't find my playstyle either, or I can't find like a deck that I enjoy out of OP08, because I do enjoy like a good amount of them. Like I'm
Yeah.
prioritizing currently Pudding, Calgara, and Marco as well.
Mm.
But Pudding obviously because I love ramp decks and I love purple. I love playing yellow as well too. So yeah,
Hey,
to
me
all
too,
the
me
people
too.
who me too. To all the people who are gonna just fucking scandalize me. Like, oh, he's a yellow player. He loves PP. I love
He
PP
loves
colored
people.
decks. I
No,
love
you're definitely
PP.
one of those players where you have to like resonate with a deck. You know,
Yeah,
you can admit when a deck is good, but you also acknowledge when a deck isn't good for you, or when there's certain
You don't
choices in
like
it
it.
that don't fit your play
yeah.
style. Yeah,
That's exactly
for
why. As
sure.
much as I enjoy playing King, like from a competitive standpoint and a viability, it's a very hard deck because it's held back even with the ban list. Like I still
Yeah,
find trouble of what to put in. Understanding that the Zoro is still a very aggressive aggro deck during this format, and his Review is still
Zero.
going to be relative into the format. Like those are
Oh
really
yeah.
strong checks to the deck, and it's just even into Pudding it sucks too because as much as both want to ramp and King having a built-in ramper because of an Animal Kingdom pirate locked leader or like type card,
Onigashima.
Pudding just does ramp better. So I'll stick
Oh yeah,
mainly
because
with
it's
Pudding.
free.
Yeah, it's free, and then you play the curve a lot better. The ramp to 10 mom like so much easier
Oh
because
yeah.
it's on demand.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But funny enough, I think the pick that's gonna surprise especially you guys the most I've been really thinking about is BY Ace. BY
Oh.
Ace.
Oh, wait,
I'm very much
really?
thinking
Interesting.
about a lot of the tech choices because obviously I haven't been very much of a blue player, but with the recent success of like Rebecca, especially in today's locals, because Rebecca's won
Dude,
our locals today.
Yeah.
Andres
Andres,
just
shout
took
out
that
to
shit down.
Andres. And
Andres,
I've
bro.
topped myself with Rebecca. I very much enjoy that kind of playstyle and just the ease of access that blue offers in terms of utility. So I very much
Okay.
want to test too because I'm sad to say that this card is still considered to be kind of ass, but 10 drop Newgate. I really want to test 10 drop
Mm,
Newgate in BY
Oh,
Ace
I didn't.
because
yeah.
Whitebeard leader type. Why not
Yeah,
just
that's true.
hard drop because you're a 4 life leader, you'll be 2. A 10-12 is always good to stat line. When with a good floodgate effect, obviously you have to get there. But I feel like BY Ace has a good matchup to it. And I want it to be able to combat Lucci because Gravity Blade is a card. You can bump your
Mm.
leader to 7.
Oh yeah.
There's so many good cards that Ace has that are Whitebeard pirates, surprisingly enough. So I think
Yeah.
top of the list, if it wasn't an OPA exclusive deck choice, would be BY Ace for me.
Mm,
Mm.
Okay.
okay, okay, okay.
Yeah, that's like my pet deck. It's like that's
Yeah,
actually
you put
exciting
me on
to.
it. You did put
Really?
me on it because I was watching you play
Okay.
and I was like, dude, this looks like so much fun.
It is a
Like,
fun
All
deck. It's
gas.
yeah,
hella fun.
exactly.
It's
And
fun when you're not missing, but
I
yeah,
whiffed.
I went
albeit
for the
too
third time in
because
a row.
so both you and Aaron have put me onto that just because the thank you for loving me too because
Yes.
that
Oh,
card
okay.
could be
Yeah.
used in it
Oh
as well
yeah.
because it's a one cost Dofi searcher with a good trig and that got me
Yeah.
thinking. I'm like, okay, well that's pretty cool. And then I was like reading the card. I'm like, reveal up to one card with tie wiper types in its type. Monkey D. Leave put it in hand, then place the rest on top or bottom. Not only do I get a plus off putting a 5 off my leader, but I can tutor for the next 2 turns off of one Dawn. So I'm like,
Yeah,
that's
so
Yeah.
such
you're
a
less
crazy
reliant
card.
on the blocker ace because I feel
Exactly.
like that was the card that like elevated BY ace because
Yes.
then you get to set up so that you draw the kid version of like Ace or Luffy and then you set the big one on top and then you use leader
Exactly.
ability,
And I feel like
right?
just
But you
those
get
two
to do the same
cards.
thing now for one Dawn.
Yes, exactly.
One Dawn.
That's pretty
I'm very,
deep.
very interested in playing it, and just because like I have a soft spot for floodgate cards, like how Panda says about control. I like control in the sense that it's a floodgate. If that was any
Yeah.
adherent to my Yu-Gi-Oh decks, I used to play Labyrinth,
Oh
so
wow. You would.
that's exactly yeah.
Mm-mm.
But also
He
reminds me
said,
of a Dragon Ball card when your leader would attack discard 2. Shout out to all the turbo
okay.
players.
Dude, that card is gonna be so nasty because like when you start running out of gas as BY Ace, you just get to be like, or well, you can't attack for a turn
Hmm.
unless you want to give me 7 cards,
Yeah,
or
Yeah.
like 8 cards.
It's
yeah, but
actually kind of nutty. Yeah.
yeah, that's my choice of what I'm excited for. For it's especially for a cuddler, that's not considered my main pick.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if they have the removal for it, you're like, okay, well, you're still not swinging at me, so
Yeah,
all right.
then it'd be
I just
What can you
vegged
do?
your whole board. You know, and then if you play it again and they use their entire hand to remove the Newgate, you just go, shake my hand. You want to shake my hand? Go ahead.
That's pretty good.
You
What
shake my
about you
hand.
though, Richard? I want to know what you're cooking for OPO8.
Yeah.
All right, OPO.
really
Yeah.
on?
You cooked a
The way
lot
you
for
said
this
that.
set already, right? With Ploofy, right?
The way you said that,
Dude.
it was like indicative, like, oh, dude, you don't know the type of spices I'm
You
spreading.
know,
on this.
he ain't got the cam on, but he was sitting there like, oh, I'm cooking.
Yeah, rubbing it. You can hear him
Yo,
rubbing
it's
his
actually
hands
funny, I
together.
was rubbing my hands a second ago.
I told you, I know him.
He caught me red-handed. He knows. Nah, okay. So, I am really excited for OPO8. There are so many decks that I want to try in this format. But I definitely think the one that has resonated the most with me right now is Purple Luffy. I just think I'm really excited for Purple Luffy. It just Purple is getting a couple more tools here and there, and then 8.5 format when the Structured X comes out is looking really exciting for me. But right now, what I'm
Consistency.
focused on is just going to be base '08. That 9-drop mom. That 9-drop mom in Ploofy is like one of the best tools the deck has ever gotten.
They're
I
like,
think,
let's print 9 Kaido, but it puts it in life
yeah,
And gives you a
like
life.
and
that's like
and
the
heals
biggest
you.
thing for me. That's the biggest thing for me is that like I can 9-mom put something in their life, and then the next turn afterwards, I still have enough Dawn to play a Kaido. It's
Disgusting.
Yeah,
it's
it's
like
crazy.
it's absolutely disgusting that, but then on top of that, it raises it raises the deck to another level as well because it sets you up for if like on your 4 Dawn turn you somehow ramp twice going second. So, say you go second, and then I'm gonna start playing Bond Clays in the list now because I think you
Mm.
definitely, now that RP Law's gone and it's not an option for people to play, Bond Clay is definitely a card that I think I want to play more of in purple decks. It's just a card that won't get removed as easily anymore. Now the only decks that are really removing it are like black decks or blue decks with their removal. I mean, if red decks are playing their removal based off of power, still annoying, but what can you do? I don't.
Yeah.
It's like there's only so many red decks that I'm worried about. But I'm really excited for going Bond Clay, ramp with leader. Okay, I've only lost 1 life here off of this ability, and then go next turn after that. My opponent does their thing. I go to my next turn. I'm at 8 now. I can ramp with my leader ability, puts me at 9. Play a 9-mom, remove whatever body they have, and gain the life back. But don't you also don't lose or gain cards in that transaction because you have to discard a card from your hand for it, so it's
Right.
almost like you're filtering one card. It's almost like you're
Exactly.
filtering one card. You're gaining a new card to your hand that you didn't see, that you weren't going to see before. You dish it from your hand, you gain a life. You're neutral. You're
Yeah.
neutral, but you've seen one new card and you've gained a big body on your board and removed a character off your opponent's board. It
And let's
deals
not
really
forget
well.
with purple Luffy, because you give yourself a life, if they don't hit you and they like decide to go for your board for whatever reason, it gives you another opportunity to ramp as well off leader
Oh,
ability.
100%. Oh,
So
100%. It's
you could draw
actually
a card.
Oh yeah, it's one of my favorite things about the new build with the 9-drop mom is just that you're just able to do plays like that now without worrying about, man, I just put myself to like 2 or 3 life and now I'm really pressured and worried that they're gonna kill me faster. It alleviates so much of that pressure because normally when I want to play that 9 Kaido on my 8 Dawn turn, I'm like, okay, cool, I'm getting so much value off of it, but on top of that, I do have to worry about my life still.
Exactly.
Now with this 9-mom, I think the other thing is that a lot of players are used to playing against Ploofy in a way that before the Kaido turn, they typically like to play a 5-drop Sabo if you're playing anything with black. So
Yeah.
like a Ploofy player, the funniest thing about it is that with the Ploofy player, you can put the Sabo back into their life face up, and if you basically force them to use the baby off of curve, or else you're gonna hit them for that life. You want to play the 9 mom, and then you want to put it into their life on the top, and then you swing at them a few times to force them to discard cards. Otherwise, that life is going to the bottom of the deck.
Oh.
If
And
they
you're
played,
you're
if
talking
they
about in
played,
the BY Luffy matchup, right?
yeah, in the BY Luffy matchup specifically, and I think that deck is going to be really popular in OPO8,
Yeah, for
just
sure.
because RP Law's gone. It has a good matchup into a lot of decks right now, and I just think it has the potential to be one of the best decks in the format. BY Luffy specifically. So if that's one of the matchups that I'm worried about, I think the 9-drop mom just cleans up that matchup really easily.
Yeah,
So I'm
definitely.
really excited. I'm really excited for that deck. Specifically, the 9-drop mom is probably the biggest thing for me, but I think like yeah, that's it for me. It's just the purple Luffy is my thing right now, and I think I'm really committed to it.
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, so I definitely think that like that will transition us really well into kind of like how you can build your decks like for like not just locals but maybe like slightly bigger events like we have treasure cups coming up. And so there's a lot of cards in the game. I mean at this point, right? We
Oh
have
yeah,
we have 7 sets currently out, and it definitely gets hard to understand like what cards are good in what matchups, and then also what decks should it be teching for, you know. And I feel like so that's something that the four of us have a good grasp on, in my opinion. um and for me that came from playing a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh, and I'm sure it's the same for Mark, where it's like there's a lot of cards in Yu-Gi-Oh as well, and so there's a lot of ways to tech against certain decks and certain strategies. So that's something that I'd like to get into. um like Panda, like what do you like you said that you like to tech two stage and you like to tech rush Lucy, and
Hmm.
like what do you think that like that brings to your deck against like certain like your harder matchups? Like what does that allow your deck to do in
It
your
really
harder
brings the
matchups?
element of surprise.
Right.
Because I researched this when deciding on what to put into the Rob Lucci deck at first. It's like, what rush options does black have?
Right.
Out of the whole
yeah,
color pie, you only have two cards that have rush, which is the 6-drop 7K
Brooke.
rush Rob Lucci and the 3-drop 4K Brook, which
Wait,
is a
yeah,
little bit
Rush?
harder to accomplish because
Because
you
they have
need,
to have 0 costs.
yeah, you need to have a zero. Your opponents have a 0 cost on board for it to get rush, and it's just
Speaking
like,
of right
well,
now.
so am I investing cards in order to get a 0 cost on board just to get a 3 cost 4K rush Brook, and then invest more Dawn to just swing 7 still?
Yeah.
So it's like
yeah,
Or
the rush Lucci just made the most sense because I mean, you're already playing a CP package with it, and
hmm
it's always going to be online, right? And then you can also use it for other stuff within your Cypher Pool core.
exactly.
yes,
You're
And
right.
the why I even decided to include the Rush Lucci, like I said, it's the element of surprise because no one expects black to have a rush option.
That is true.
It's like, and Mark can attest to this as well. Like he forgets that I have Rush Lucci in my deck.
There's numerous times within tourney where if I didn't have exactly two 2Ks, that I would have had that game be swept out under my feet, and I would have just literally been that meme, just just like, oh, he did it to me again. I keep forgetting.
Yeah,
The
Yeah,
and
dementia's kicking in.
and the reason why I asked you first, Panda, is because I think this is your like first like card game that you've played competitively, like on this level, like
yeah,
a little bit of schoolyard Yu-Gi-Oh,
mm-hmm.
maybe a
Schoolyard
little bit of
Yu-Gi-Oh.
Master Duel, but this is for sure your first card game. So like it's very interesting to see the perspective of somebody who's just getting into the game and how they approach deck building versus like people who have been playing card games for a long time, because like as we're going to get into, like there's a lot of like in-depth analysis of like there's like 5 NLs at my locals, so I should have single target removal that allows me to get rid of bigger bodies, right? If you're
Uh-huh.
playing Lucci or you're playing
yeah,
Corona or something. And then like, oh, there's a lot of blue players, so I need low like multi-target removal, so then that way I can actually have counter and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
counter in my hand and so on and so forth. And so definitely like a very interesting take on deck building, because it's like, no, this is good because one, rush is always a good mechanic.
Mm-hmm.
Two, it's a hard read. It's a very hard read. Your opponent has to know that you're playing that card in Lucci, because
That's
there
true.
are practically zero lists, as far as I'm concerned,
Yeah.
that have gotten like put out there. You know what I mean? Because they top. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
You're very close. You're, dude, honest. Like
I
you're
was
talking
so
about earlier. You're
close,
so
yeah.
literally so
The
close
first
to topping with
Rob Lucci list with Rush Lucci, dude. Oh.
dude, you could have held that title forever, right? But so far there's no list running it, and so like I think it is genuinely a good approach to playing the deck, because I think that against an L, dude, you could just lose because your opponent's like, that's your last
No,
swing.
that's literally like one of the reasons why I even included it in the first place. It's like, well, Anel has so many triggers and they can Beji your last big body, right? Because there's been situations when I played Anel as well, where my opponent lost a game because their last attacker was just Beji'd. And it's like, well,
Yeah.
I want to try and avoid that, but I also don't want to break my hand with a bunch of, Rush Lucci. So it's only one, right? I feel like it's a sort of deck building philosophy, right? Because you mentioned like you can try to build around your locals, right? But
Yeah.
I feel like if you try to just build around your locals, then you're going to develop bad habits in your deck building where you're not going to be prepared for bigger tournaments.
Gotta think big picture,
Yeah,
baby.
you got to think big
I
picture.
agree.
And you got to be able to build a deck that's versatile enough to compete against all the other top decks in the meta. For example, in my Lucci list at the moment, there's also 2 6-cost Brooks and 1 Nightmare Luffy, or like the 5-drop 6k Luffy that trashes the 2 cost when it attacks.
Yeah.
Which it's really great against a Black Yellow Luffy matchup, because otherwise, if I don't find those, and it's an ass of a time. It's a really bad time.
No, it's rough for sure.
Or even then against Nami, which is getting a lot of popularity, the 6-cost Brook is fantastic. It's just bottom decks 3 cards from their deck.
Exactly.
So you're like breaking their strategy as you're just stalling them out, returning 3 cards back to their deck every time you cycle it with Rebecca or with Gecko, right? It's funny when that happens too. But it's like you have to build the deck not to one specific matchup. You have to build a deck that fits your strategy the best, that can also like have a fighting chance against everything, which is kind of hard to do. I won't lie, it is hard, and I still do lose. Like, god damn it, like I'm not. I've gotten so close to beating RP Law, but it's always like they have the 3rd rusher or the
They top deck the rusher, or
Yeah.
it's like you barely have
I'll-
enough exact counter. Exactly.
I'll tell the story of what happened to me at the first Treasure Cup that was last week that I did on Saturday. I played against our friend Andrew, who managed to get top 16, I believe, right, at Pasadena.
Yeah.
Top 16. So I joke like, yeah, he's a better player, right? Obviously.
Yeah.
And like I wiped his board the entire time. Like, he got 2 bodies out. I did on my 6 on turn, Suru, Ice Age, and Rob Lucci, and got both of them out.
Yeah.
He gets 2 more bodies out, and I'm like, okay, Sabo, get him out. He gets 3 bodies out. I swing 1 with Sabo, and then do a second Sabo. Like, board wiped again. I'm at 1 life.
Right.
He's like, okay, I'm going to swing 7. I take the last life. It's a Gecko, no counter. The 3rd Kidding Killer that he summons out. And it's just like, oh my god, I can't win against this deck. I remember it was just like, it was so frustrating. But it's like, at the same time, it's like, I did everything right. I did everything correct. I did what my deck wanted to do, which is wipe boards consistently. But yeah, it's like, if they find that card, it's like, what can you do, right? They literally just had the card.
No, so I'd like to hear Mark and Richard's thoughts about like deck building, because I think that's a very interesting take to have, especially as your first competitive deck, because I think that there's levels to deck building for sure. So we can talk about it a little bit afterwards, though, after we hear from Mark and Richard, whichever one of you would like to go first.
For me, I'm not gonna lie, Deck building is not necessarily hard, especially because there's so many like really good outlets on the internet to be able to go, okay, what's the formula and what's the baseline that I want to build my deck from? So a
Right.
good example
Yeah.
would be Top Deck, One Piece Top Decks. You have both the East Asian and like Western format. So it's a
Mhm.
lot easier to get these baselines, but for me personally, I like doing those, just net decking, just because I want to grasp the better understanding on these decks because without understanding just why these card choices are within them, it makes it a little bit harder to grasp what it could work in it. So i.e. tech
Mhm.
cards. I've never
Right.
really been a techie person because coming from a Yu-Gi-Oh background, it's always been, oh, BDIF, let me just net deck this and see how I do. And
Fair enough.
it really comes and stems to me about not only like how Panda said, locals formatting, but also not locals formatting because I want to think about the picture about just like how he said too as well. Like there's so many more ideas of text that would lead to bad habits. For
Right.
example,
Mhm.
a bad tech I'm not gonna lie, I would admit to myself would be, and then everyone could attest to this because I always do this, is I don't like running stages in any deck that where the stage is almost a necessity. So back in the Kingdoms and Intrigue, I built Rebecca. Always was on my copium because I didn't run stage. I was on Lucci
That was
with
wild.
no stage. I mean,
That was
granted, it's a
less
little
wild.
bit better. Yes, it's less wild because it's
Yeah.
more just card. Black has a better card pool than it previously did in OPO4.
Way better.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
way a lot stronger. So there's a lot of more ways to be able to conceptualize these decks and have the identities be more to your own.
Yeah.
And I think that's my bad habit. But also, I think that there's both pros and cons that for both being a net deck and being original too as well because without being original you can't figure out what's good and without being able to net deck you won't be able to figure out what tech is good so
Right.
having the best of 50-50 is what I believe is like how I like to build decks because I don't know. Sometimes I play a deck and I just chimp. I just hop on the sim like, man, this deck is ass. And then Aaron or someone else will tell me about like, oh, this is how you play the deck, and all of a sudden this golden gate just opens, and I'm like, God, this
Fibonacci
deck is
sequence.
fucking crazy. The cookie, it's like I was a starving man on a barren desert, and then I just found an oasis, and I'm like, man, this deck, oh my God, it is the hydration I needed to better myself as a new grade Marco player. Because I
Yeah.
generally thought, I'm like, Marco's kind of ass. I don't know how these people are doing. And then they told me about these cards, and now after testing, I'm like, holy shit, this is crazy.
He's
Fuck
chefing
what
it
it,
up. He's cooking.
yeah, I was like, oh my god. What you're telling me spending my 10 Dawn turn to do Sanji into Whitebeard isn't the only play I can do? Going Sanji into Rayleigh and keeping a Dawn? Oh my god. Oh,
It's very good.
it's very good. It's very good. So I'm a very 50-50 person. I'm 50 net deck, 50 testing with tech because sometimes my tech gets a little funky.
Mm.
Right.
2 10-drop Kuzans.
That's super fair.
Any deck that can fit 10 drop Kuzan, it's the best deck for me. I love Kuzan. I love Kuzan. I'm PG.
All right.
How about you, Richard? Let's see how this
Lay
card
down
compares
for
to
us.
him.
Let
Yeah,
me see.
lay down the law.
So-
Because let's preface this by saying Richard actually plays every single card game known to man. Let's preface it
Yeah,
that way.
Yeah.
Also,
I play a lot of card games. As someone who's been playing card games for like ever, and then every time I see a new card game, I really want to play it, and I just get into it. Uh, Deck building is very interesting for me because, like Mark said, I do like to do that as well, where I go on One Piece top decks or I go on whatever whatever format of deck builder or top quote unquote top deck site there is. So for like Pokemon, I use Limitless. For other card games, I used to use whatever resource I could find. So for like Yu-Gi-Oh, it's like a lot of like people posting stuff online and stuff. Like you could find like there are sometimes like places where you could find them kind of culminated, but like for the most place, it was always just like what what did this guy play? Like what is his exact list? Yu-Gi-Oh was definitely like Mark said a very hard one to tech because like you tech a card and everybody's like, damn, that dude's on tech. His deck is ass because
Yeah.
those decks were incredibly tight. Yu-Gi-Oh
Yeah.
decks are incredibly tight, so it's a lot harder to not just net deck and call it a day. But I think a lot of my deck building philosophy comes from putting together a list of all the best performing decks, and I do like to look at so whenever I go on top decks and I'm looking for a deck that I want to play, I scroll through the entire list of every deck that got a top with it. I try to weed out the ones where there was a little too small amount of players for me to really like it, or I try to weed out like standard battles and stuff like that sometimes.
Oh yeah.
The 3-round flagship.
Yeah. I try to weed out like the 3-round flagships and stuff like that. I try to specifically look at some of the better performing decks, but then also I go on Eggman events when I want to look at like top 32s of like more recent events that have happened in America and stuff like that,
Yeah.
or like EU.
Exactly.
It helps me a lot to grab like a culmination of multiple decks because it gives me a better mindset on multiple players' standpoints because not everyone plays a deck exactly the same. And I will say this 100%, it is very much like that for One Piece where like you see one player top and then another player tops and their lists are very different. Um, there are some times where you look at their list and it'll be like the exact same list, but I feel like that's really rare. And normally when you hear about that, you'll hear in like their interview or whatever, they'll be like, "Oh, that guy's like a part of my team, and we were like
Yeah.
both playing the same exact list. We were both playing the
Exactly.
same list because if one of us tops, all of us tops, bro, because the list works."
Exactly. And it's
But
funny too because you'll also see them like one of them will be like top 64, like top 32, and then the other one person will get like first or second.
yeah,
And you're like, what was the difference? And the real difference is just like the matchup spread.
it
You're
really
like,
is.
oh,
It
yeah.
really is. It's very much like that.
You're like, that guy ran into 6 RP laws, and that's his best
Yeah,
match, and that's the best matchup. So he got
yeah,
second.
exactly,
And the other
exactly.
guy ran into
So
like 8 Luchis, and he's like, it's my worst matchup, and I won 5 of them, so I ain't mad. He's just,
yeah.
I'm not
So I
mad.
definitely think when it comes to deck building, I do tend to try to look up deck lists, but then I try to take like the culmination of multiple deck lists and then look at what everyone's mindset kind of was when playing that deck, and then looking at what was good at around that time as well, because as metas change, they like when a format begins, nothing's gonna stay exactly the same towards the end of that format
Yeah.
unless it's like a tier 0 format.
Mm-hmm.
So I always try to pay attention to that stuff, and I really look at how the deck evolved, and then I look at the different deck lists and go, okay, I'm gonna build something that's kind of a middle ground between these. And sometimes I will just straight up net deck because I can tell that certain lists wouldn't mesh well together anyways.
Right.
Sometimes lists are just way too completely different that there's no way I can mesh them together. But I do like taking lists and kind of creating a deck that's based off of the culmination of those lists. I think that normally works out the best for me. Uh, just because I kind of get to put my own like sort of creation together. It is built not just by me, but by the minds who created the original lists. So it's like I'm just taking what they've done and putting a different spin on it. But
Yeah.
I think it's definitely helpful to do that and just to kind of look at multiple lists rather than just one, because it just helps you get a little more perspective on how well the deck can do even with using different cards.
Yeah.
And sometimes it shows you different text that people use that might have been dependent based off of matchup and stuff like that. So like looking up their matchups also helps as well, like seeing what they played against that day. I,
Exactly.
dude, sometimes when I'm researching a deck, I go so in depth that like when I find these Japanese decks, it tells you what shop they played at. Sometimes I go on Twitter and I search the name of the shop on the search bar. I find the shop, and then sometimes they post the winning decks and they post like what their matchups were, and I'll literally scroll down to the date, and sometimes I find it. Sometimes I find it. I'm a miracle worker. I'd be finding these lists and then what
Jesus, bro.
matchups they played against. I
You know what we
like to
call
have.
that? Call that a jobber. Just kidding. He's a
But
jobber, bro. He's going ham.
I just like to have. I like to know what they played against, because like if I find a list and I'm like, wow, they did really good, but this list is like
Weird.
really like off, like
Yeah.
it feels kind of weird, and then I go and look at like, I'm just gonna give a dumb example, I'm just gonna say like Ploofy or something, and then I go into like, I'm like, oh, what did they play against that day? I really want to know. And then I start
Arlong,
doing
Purple
research, and I'm like,
Shanks.
and I'm like, oh, they played against 5 NLs, easy game.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like a 70-30 matchup for Ploofy.
Yeah, that's my point. Is like, I'm like, okay, they got away with it specifically because they played against like nothing but easy matchups. So
Yeah.
it's a little more fair to say that's why they got away with playing a card that no one else plays. Like, why did this one guy get away with it, but no one else could ever get away with it?
Exactly. So
Um,
the reason why I bring up kind of teching for your locals is because I genuinely think that like your locals is gonna be like the like is we're gonna start heading towards like Japan territory with like the frequency and uptick of store treasure cups, store regionals
oh
and
yeah,
everything.
Mhm.
So
I
I
love it.
definitely think that like we're one, not just because you're going to be playing against your local players a lot, but two, because it's a good place to start, right? It's a good
Oh
place
yeah,
to
Yeah.
understand deck building as a whole and being like, oh, like why isn't my deck good? And it's like we said before, like if you only have single target removal in your deck, but you're playing against decks that go wide, not that's not how you should be playing into those matchups, or it makes it harder, right? And so I
yeah,
definitely think
exactly.
that it's just a good way to start, and then as you go up in higher, more competitive events, that's when you have to start thinking about the balance of um, how versatile should my deck be versus um how the foundation should start, right? Like the
Mm,
Yeah.
foundation of every Lucci deck
yeah.
is always going to start with Gecko Moria. It's always going to start
Oh
with
yeah.
Gecko Moria,
it's going to start with
Rebecca,
four
Savo.
cost Lucci. You know what I mean? At
Three.
least three spandom, at least,
Hmm.
right? So that's the foundation of deck building, right? Is understanding what your deck strategy is, based off, and you can tell a lot of the time based off color, right? And
Hmm.
Yeah.
that's why they're introducing the game. Like black is KOing stuff, right? So a lot of it is going to be removal. It's how you do it is going to change depending on your locals, right? Blue is a
Yeah.
lot of tempo and going wide right now. So, there's Dofi does that best in my opinion, but I think Boa is better at the control aspect of it, because it allows you to plus off of your removal.
Hmm.
Oh
And
yeah.
then yellow is all about trigs, right? And Enel is the best at it because it just keeps putting new life on top of your deck or on top of your life,
Well,
right? You're like,
Yeah.
yeah.
oh, I'm gonna take this card, put it on my life, trigger. You know what I mean? So
Exactly.
it there's definitely a way to that's the way to start deck building is what do you want to do as a player, and then you go into what are my locals playing, and then you go into the bigger picture stuff of like achieving that balance between my deck is very versatile into as many decks as possible. It has like a you know 54 or like 55-45 into every single deck, you know what I mean? Like that's hard though, because
Hmm.
you're doing like
Yeah.
you're pulling out the calculator and you're being like, okay, am I gonna see my one card out of 50 if I milled 4 times?
Will I see my
And then
Rush
also,
Lucci?
will I see my one
Yeah.
Rush Lucci, right? Like
The
that's
answer is
hard.
yes, always.
Always, baby. I
Always
just
start
So
with
I
draw.
stage
think
in hand, even if though I only run
I
two.
do want to say that I personally never tech for locals. I just never do that. I just my brain is just like,
Always
why
thinking
why do
big
I want to
picture.
test? Yeah, why do I want to test for this one thing? Like, it's
Mhm.
just a card that is not going to be. It might not come up as often when I play in these bigger events.
Right.
So I, like you said, I would rather make my deck more successful into every
A
deck
bigger event.
rather than make it more successful into a specific
Yeah,
meta.
exactly.
And that brings me to the point of like, well, if we're playing against our locals more often, right? If we
Hmm.
know that about 70% of the players at our locals is playing RP Law, I'm gonna build my deck so that I can be RP Law. You know what I
Mm.
mean? And we're getting,
Yeah.
like I said, we're getting the uptick of treasure cups, we're getting the uptick of store regionals, and so I think it's a viable way of deck building when you're starting to get into the game for sure. And then
Yeah.
as you progress as a player, definitely just be like, oh, gotta get those bad habits out, because like it's very hard with the large card pool, two, the variety of decks, because like we talked about before, every single color has a viable strategy to employ their color, like their main colors as like a concept, right? So red is good at aggroing and all that stuff like that, but different leaders will employ that strategy differently, or some not even really at all. Like, you know what I mean? Where it's just like, wow, this leader actually kind of sucks because it's green blue, but it doesn't bottom deck. It's an aggro deck. I'm speaking from experience right here. So you know what I mean? So it's like, how like where do we start? You know what I mean? And yeah, you can start with net decking, and there's no issues with that at all.
Yeah,
Like
no issues at all with net decking.
definitely start there. But once you figure out your strategy, you know what I mean? Like, how do you want to approach the game? Inside, I think there's a lot of merit to starting off being like, oh, a lot of my locals play NL. You know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna play this way so that I can beat the NL players, right? And then
that's fair.
And then going into like what you guys have been saying, where it's like, oh, this list for this leader that I'm playing won, but he didn't play against any NL, so that's good information. There's a lot of ways to like compare it without actually having to do even more research, right? Because you're doing full big picture, where it's like, okay, how many events have happened in the last couple months, essentially, and then how many of this leader has topped, and then what did those leaders play into during that? Right? That's a lot of information, right?
It is a lot of information.
So if you start with your locals, you get to have that, like, a little bit of a smaller pool to work with, and then you can compare that to the major events, right? And then go, oh, there's actually not a lot of NL players in regional events. And then you can also ask that question of why that is, right? Is it because there's a lot of RP law? Is it because a lot of Lucci players are teching against that deck? You know what I mean? Or whatever deck you're playing. And so it's very interesting. There's a lot of ways to approach conceptualizing, and I think that like starting with your locals, it's a good way to go.
It is a good way to go.
Yep.
Yeah. Gosh, what
to start off your competitive adventure.
Yeah.
Really figure out what your deck building philosophy is going to be with that. Do you want to win locals, or do you want to win, like, try and win bigger events with your deck building?
But yeah, so I think that's a good transition into talking about what we're going to be playing for these upcoming Treasure Cups. I know Mark is struggling a little bit. I know. You on the toolbox. You going to work. I'm
going to work.
Richard's on. Okay. Well, we gonna cook. Me, I'm actually stuck. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah. I genuinely believe in Zoro Sanji, but I just did not like perform well today. So like now I'm like backtracking.
No, I get you.
All right, who wants to go down the list of what we're thinking then? Because I have another curveball to throw. Because I don't think anyone would expect me to choose this deck either.
So I really, oh dude, these Treasure Cups are gonna go insane.
Mono purple king.
Whoa, you were very close. Oh! You were very close. I was laughing with
the list. It is.
I was very laughing with the okay, this list is good because it's just the Uber 10 ramp, 2 10s, and just control with 6/7 king, because everything is minus 4k, is 1k, so it's all RP laws bodies are 5k. Yeah. So, but that's not what I'm running for Treasure Cup. No spoilers right now, but like I'm running something that I don't think anyone's ever seen me play. But the hint was this deck is multicolored. And I used to like this deck, but Aaron was a monster on this deck. With this format.
I was a monster. Oh, wait, I was a monster at this deck in this format?
Not this format. This format. It was the previous format.
Previous format?
The biggest hint is that the deck was intended to be an aggro deck, but people figured out another way to play it.
Oh, I know what he's talking about. Oh, okay.
I'm so lost.
Okay.
Are we spoiling?
Okay, Richard, what's your guess?
Bro, are you playing green, yellow Yamato?
Because I definitely think, okay, I'll start it off then. That's going to be my next choice, because I definitely think that because RP Law is still within the Treasure Cup format, and there's still a good amount of leaders like Reiju, RP Law, BY Luffy, that are
Mhm.
4 life leaders. Like, why did this deck fall off? Because
Bro, I'm gonna tell you
Hody
right
is
now.
such a crazy card. There's so
Mm.
many cards that be able to allow you to stabilize the game. And shout out to Carlo. I know he's back living in Mexico, but he was the one who I remember I studied a good amount of his Yamato gameplay
Dude,
because
his Yamato is crazy.
because the fact that we have a card pool of like, okay, Hiyori lets you draw. This goes back to Aaron as well because I'm a Perona player, always drawing fucking cards with you could be my samurai. I was like, okay, why not just play a deck that goes super fast and punishes 4 life leaders? Like, wait, Yamato
Oh my
does that
god.
so crazy. Oh
Wait.
wait, we have Onami. Wait, they have to counter out. Wait, half of their
Dude,
deck is like non-counter.
and you got that flame slice. You got
Blade
that flame
Slice is
slice.
such a
Oh, flame
slept-on
slice is
card. No
crazy.
one in the format, and even in the now decks, like Kata players aren't popping up and playing that card. Like,
Yeah.
I
It's
think
so good.
Kata should be in this format with that card and Amaru because those cards are crazy. Rest of 4. Give your leader
Okay,
plus 1k.
I will say Blaze Slice is actually a broken card because it can be used on main and counter.
And counter, yeah.
So if you
Exactly
think that they're gonna
why.
and it gives you plus 1k for the turn. So
It
you
does.
can mess up your opponent's like attempt to go for game by 1 buffing your leader and then 2 resting one of their characters if they swing incorrectly. You could be like,
Oh yeah.
"You got a 4-cost body over there?" No, you don't. And they're like, "Oh, what just
Exactly
happened?"
why. Exactly
And then I'm
why
like,
I'm really considering Jin Yellow Yamato because not only that card, but it's not a bad deck. It's just slept on right now.
Hmm.
It is.
so I would say that the best version of that deck though is not the draw you can be my samurai build because I think for me personally, like I think that Yamato is like should be a full aggro deck just because the leader has double attack on it. Like
Oh
I
yeah.
genuinely think that like every turn you should be swinging at life and just being like I'm gonna chip your hand. You know what I mean? And
So
if
like
not,
four blaze slice, 4 of the I don't know if you play 4 of it, but it's that new green event. Is it from OPO7 or is
Oh,
it from a
the
Tricolocosm, something like that?
no, it's
The
the 2 cost rest 2 characters. Demon
Ashura.
Ashura,
Yeah,
yeah,
is it that
Ashura.
one? I
It's
know
nine
one
star
of them
demon.
I know
yeah,
there's
rest.
one that rests like I know it gives like plus 3,000 power and then
That
like
is
something
that is
else.
Ashura.
Yeah, it's
It
Yeah.
gives
I
plus
have the
three
sim up just
k.
for this moment.
Yeah, plus three
Uh,
k. Rest a 3 cost, and then one of your 3 costs are higher, and then you can rest
A
in
a
a
5
5 or
5
less.
cost or
Yeah,
lower.
and
Yeah.
the trigger is you may rest up to one of your opponent's 4 or less.
Oh my god.
It's actually
Yeah.
not bad of a card because considering that you're usually either chump blocking with Momonosuke or you're even swinging with him, which you should be at this point because if you're just putting Hiyori back into life with Momonosuke or putting Nekomamushi back in life, it's such a crazy card.
you know,
Yeah,
It's really
and
such a crazy card.
No, I think that card is very good. And
and
you
I
can
think
rest the Saba
that
with that.
Mhm.
dude, you can rest Hiyori or not Hiyori. You can rest Shirahoshi. So if you like set up
Oh,
Shirahoshi trig,
Exactly.
you can tap your Shirahoshi and be like tap your 5k blocker, your 5 cost
To keep
blocker.
things a little short, but I mean, if to anyone at tabletop is watching this podcast, don't search up this card because I think this
Don't
is
look it
such a
up, don't look
techie
it up.
card. But it's a 1 cost land of Wano. It's a Tengu Yama Hitetsu. It's a 1 cost 2k 1 cost 1 counter 2,000 power trigger up to 1 year land of Wano type characters or leader gains 2k for the turn.
mm,
oh,
It's a 1
Oh,
cost, so that allows you to be able to tutor it to your life with Momonosuke if you go second
oh
one next curve.
wow.
Because that's like a card where it's like the almost the same level of effect as you're the one who should disappear because
oh, because it
albeit it
buffs you
doesn't
later.
recov your life, it's a 2k. It makes your leader
Oh
a
wow.
2k.
Yeah,
That's
that's a lot.
spicy. That's a lot. All for it going
He's in the
second
lab.
too. I'm thinking that this card is really good and I'm gonna lab with it.
hmm.
But definitely lean towards this.
You know,
All
you
right,
mentioned about
who wants to go next?
so real quick. You
He's
mentioned
cooking.
about punishing 4 life leaders, and it reminds me of back in OPO2 when I went really unga bunga as Green Kid against like
That was the
Z
move.
or fucking like any other dual color leader. Just like, all right, my turn 2. I have 3 Dawn, 5. rest 3, discard 1, 5. All right. 7, discard rest 3, restand 7. I remember I beat more people than it should be allowed to get away with that.
I think that also ties into into our deck building philosophy, because it does take into account our locals meta, understanding the format, and like shout out to you, because especially because you are not only stuck with the game since OPO1, but you've grown like a lot as a player.
Dude,
Like you went
seriously.
from like locals, like learning to the game, and now you're like topping at regionals with it. Like you've come a long way, especially from someone whose first competitive card game is this. So, yeah, that's
Shit.
a little bit of penitence to like how long we've been playing this
Thank you.
game.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah, gosh.
Yeah, my first locals, I
Mhm.
won that shit.
Oh, bro.
Oh, yeah,
Oh.
true.
Hey, let's save that story. Let's save that
No,
story.
I
I'm
remember-
pissed.
Sorry, for a different
I'm
time.
pissed.
I remember the first
It was-
like
Yeah, that's right.
the first tournament outside of locals that I did at tabletop. It was a half K, and I remember I actually had the deck list complete, and I
Yeah.
lost every single game. But I still had so much fun that day, because it was like, holy shit, like I'm having banter with all these people. I'm having like just fun conversations.
Dude,
I
and
played
they have the
the
taquero.
tacos. Ooh,
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
those are the best tournaments.
Dude,
Just, like,
honestly, the nostalgia between that, albeit not every, that's why I would say our LGS is pretty goated, because we have so many people who've stuck through the game and make the community as fun as it is, and we have like an LGS that really supports us, especially too.
Yeah.
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 God, I want
Definitely.
taco truck now.
Shout out to tabletop.
I'll cheat on my diet for
Some
tacos.
quesadilla tacos.
Ooh.
Oh shit.
All right, Richard, what are you playing for these treasure cups?
Oh. Man.
Promo, please.
I'm a little bit. I'm not gonna lie. I'm a little bit torn right now, but I was definitely debating between Ploofy and Reiju.
Hmm.
I just think I'm gonna play Ploofy though. This past weekend we did play in one store treasure cup this past weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I went 3-2. I had a little bit of a bad experience after like so I won my round 1, and then I lost 2 games in a row to Bricks, and it like really messed up my head. Like I didn't know what to do after that, and I like literally wanted to drop from the event. But then I forgot about the Perona raffle, and I said, put me back in there, Chief. I said, put me back in there, Chief. I need that Perona.
Hell yeah.
But I played out the rest of my games. I won the rest of them. It definitely was like a hard like mental hit to me though, because I had been playtesting with Ploofy for like weeks now, and the deck had been performing and performing and performing. And literally like the last locals that I played in before that, I went 3-1. I lost to Reiju, but it was a very close game. It felt like a close game. It felt like a winnable matchup. I think if I had just chosen to go first, it would have been a much better game for me. But I hadn't played into that matchup before that point, and then I started labbing it. More. It is still a difficult matchup. I think it is winnable though. And I played against RP Law. I played against a little bit of RP Law as well, and I think Ploofy does have a decent matchup into it. Again, if I can play like annoying enough characters, and then like really remove their board while also like keeping myself at like a decent amount of life, I should be okay. But I think for now I'm gonna play Purple Luffy because it's the deck I'm most comfortable with. And there was a tweet that I saw the other day that I think really resonates with me. That somebody said, if you're about to go to a regional, do not just pick up the best deck and go. That is, play what you are comfortable with, because you will probably do better playing what you're comfortable with than playing something that's good just for the sake of it being good that you have zero experience with or little experience with. Because this game is all about knowing your deck and then knowing every matchup with that deck. So playing something you're more comfortable with is just the correct way to go. And I think because I don't have enough testing on Reiju, that in this tiny snapshot of a format right now, where where everyone RP Law isn't even gone yet, but everyone's already acting like it's gone because everybody's playing Reiju again.
You're getting
it's
too
like
comfortable. Just kidding.
we're getting comfortable. We're getting comfortable out here. But I think Reiju is a very strong deck, but I think I have to play Ploofy. I think my list is good. I think I'm ready to like play again tomorrow. Tomorrow is one of the
Tomorrow.
store treasure cups.
I'll be there.
Yeah, tomorrow is one of the store treasure cups. I'm very excited. I think I have a chance to do well with Ploofy. I think hey, I just gotta shuffle better, bro.
Just draw
I
better
just gotta
cards.
shuffle better.
It was
I
because
just
I
gotta
did a 7-pile shuffle, not an 8-pile.
Dude, always do 10-pile shuffle.
it like really messed with my mentality this past Saturday when like I played so my round one I played against a gecko and I won very confidently, and then my round two I played against none other than the Homo sapien pirata himself, Mark right here. And unfortunately, I saw like two
That was an
2Ks
unfortunate
the
game.
entire game, and I played
No.
14. I played 14 2Ks.
Oh,
So
no.
the likelihood of that happening was really, really low. I had like no counter in my hand all game. I kept going, if he just keeps swinging five at me, I'm just gonna die. And unfortunately, he kind of picked up on it, and he just kept swinging like okay numbers into me, and it was enough. I didn't have the hand to deal with what he was doing, and it sucked too because I cycled with the Khalifa like 2 or 3 times that game, and I still didn't see like any 2Ks, which was actually wild.
Oh.
We talked about it. Me and Mark talked about it after the game, and he was like, "I can't believe you drew that many cards with only seeing two
That
2Ks."
that very much was wild because there were so many times in our match where I thought to myself, I'm like, damn, you have 7 cards in hand. Do I even attempt to go for the board? And like the big
Yeah,
telegraphs were like, oh, you weren't countering for board. I'm like, oh shit, I think he's in a bad spot.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There was like some easy swings that he did into my board where it was like barely like a 6K or a 7 into a 6, and I just let it go. I was just
Yeah.
letting it go.
Oh.
And it's really rough when you're playing Ploofy because you really want to defend your board against black decks because you want to force them to use the removal. But it was unfortunate I just didn't have the counter for it. I think there was a turn where Mark swung, I think he swung like 8 or he swung like 7 into one of my 6Ks, and I gave
Oh,
him
and you,
I gave him two
yeah,
1Ks. I gave him two
that
1Ks, and he just immediately knew from there
that
that I
was
was in a
that was
really
when I
bad
swung at your
spot.
Magellan. Yep, I remember
Yeah,
that.
yeah, it was just like a really bad spot from there, and he knew from there that he probably had the game. And I think I tried to like talk it out, and then like my brain just couldn't get over that I bricked. And then going into my next game, I like it was just like it was like the opposite effect. I was saying afterwards, man, it was like my deck heard me, but it monkey pawed me. It monkey pawed me. It gave me like every single 2K I had in my deck and zero playable cards.
Ooh.
I had like no playable cards. Like I found my top end, like but the top end couldn't do anything when I had no other playable cards to play before that. It was really rough. But I was just like after that game I was just like, man, I just want to drop from this event. I don't feel good. Like that I thought this deck I thought I knew I thought I knew this deck's limits. I thought I knew what it could do, but man, I am just like I'm just bricking super hard and it feels super bad and I don't even want to play right now.
No.
Um I
I
stuck it out afterwards and I played 2 more rounds. I had fun. I started feeling better. It's like I don't know. I think I'm gonna play tomorrow. I'm gonna play this Ploofy deck, and I'm gonna do good. I'm gonna
Yeah.
win.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel you
Y'all
on that,
about to see
Richard.
Ploofy wins a store treasure cup.
Nah, Richard, I feel you on that, and the whole like you get like just the most terrible games and you like feel like your deck is
Defeated, yeah.
shit and it's like what the
Yeah,
fuck did I spend all
feel
this time
defeated.
on, right? Like I
Yeah,
I say a lot that I love my list for Lucci, but I
you do.
definitely have moments where I've like, what the fuck did I cook here, right? Like
Yeah,
I I should have won this game
Monstrosity.
maybe if I built this differently, right? But it's like, you know, it happens. We get those games, we get those events too, where we just don't do so well. Like I had a hot string of like X and ones or better before regionals for like a few weeks, and it's like it boosted my confidence so much with the deck. But now after
yeah,
regionals, like I feel like I'm still in a rut with my list because I've been going X and two. I say that's a rut, but it's like that's still better than
that's still Yeah.
it's still decent, right? X
Yeah,
and 2.
50% of your games, yeah,
50% or more.
or more, yeah, right.
Exactly. So it's just like, it happens, right? We like, we'll get discouraged a lot.
Variance.
Yeah.
Call it
Variance.
variance.
It does
Variance,
happen.
yeah, it's hella variance. But
Dude, when I brick, that's all I say. I put my cards in my deck and I go, oh, that's variance, bro. Hold up, let me fix that. You switch up the shuffle, you're like 8 instead of 7, 10 instead of 8, and you
Yeah.
just like keep going.
Yeah.
You gotta truck through.
Yeah. You guys already
No,
know.
I feel that.
I'm still gonna play Lucci for these treasure cups. I mean,
Dude,
I don't think that
gots to.
it's the only deck that I've played this whole format. And honestly, like I don't think that's a bad thing because it's just like this deck is
Not
just
at
so
all.
fucking fun to me, and it served me so well. Why would I give it up
Yeah.
right now?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna go back to Perona, but I switched up my list a little bit. I'm definitely leaning more
He's
towards the
cooking.
idea of making it more versatile into more decks rather than teching specifically for certain decks.
Hmm.
I had a bit of one-ofs in there that I was seeing when I really didn't need them, and then I think that Cross AI was right. Don Krieg is a bait card.
I was about to
Not
say
good.
Don Krieg is gonna get out of the
Yeah,
list.
I was about to say.
I
Bro was
cried.
Don
playing
Krieg.
Don Krieg, and he every time he played it and actually killed 2 things, his brain just went dopamine, dopamine. I'm cooking.
I'm chilling out.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
all right, Ice Age 3 cost Brook. All right, cool.
Yep.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
was like, no, it was definitely a wake up call that it's like there are stronger plays I can make, and then against the decks that go wide, I just have to have the counter, right? I just have to cycle better. So
Yeah.
one of my not one of my tech choices, but my list is looking like my top end is 4 Moria, 2 Sabo, and then 2 Stussy. And I was on Hody Jones, 1 9-drop Zero, and then 2 Krieg as kind of like my top endish cards or like power plays. But I've just found that like if I keep generating advantage, that like my single target removal it makes my single target removal better into the matchups that go wide. And then that way I don't have to play on the back foot essentially and dig for those multi-target removal. I dig for counter as opposed to that, and so that's definitely helped my list a lot. I haven't gotten a chance to test it, but in person, but on sim, it is definitely shown its worth. Like Stussy is a great card because sometimes you only need to get rid of 1 body in order to like close out the game. You're like, oh, I have 1 life, but they have only 2 swings, so I just remove their 1 body and then I kill them next turn.
Yeah.
Unless they like double blocker, but then that's when the multi-target removal comes up, right?
Yeah.
So it's a lot of back and forth on how I want to play the list of versatility versus versus like teching into specific matchups. But I definitely think I've reached that good balance, and I can't wait to play the deck. If I do, question mark, maybe Zoro Sanji makes his comeback tomorrow, and I go
The
5-0.
redemption arc.
The
Are you
redemption
also-
arc for Sanji.
Are you also playing tomorrow, Aaron? And
I'm gonna try. So the on Brute the tickets got sold out, and I didn't get in, but there's only like 20 people signed up on the Bandai app out of 32. So I just applied, and then I'm like, if I get off the wait list, then I would love to play.
Okay.
And our good buddy Aiden, dude, he's such a sweetheart, bro. He gave me his store credit from Brute. He transferred it to me.
Aw.
I heard.
He is like, I had $25 store credit and I transferred it to you, brothers. If you get a chance, you should definitely play in the Treasure Cup. And I'm like,
Aw.
Yeah, we love it.
Cry, bro, dude.
shout out Aiden, dude. He's such a
He'll be coming
He's such a great
to San Diego for regional,
he
dude.
got into-
Let's fucking
He's
go.
like, guess who's vacationing? I convinced him. I was like, Aiden, you know people in San Diego. You know all the spots to go to and all that stuff. Why don't you just vacation here if you miss us? And he's like, don't make me do it, bro. And he's doing it now in T-minus like 3 months, bro. He's gonna be here.
Yeah.
A little bit less
Yeah.
than that, actually. So like, shout out Aiden,
It's
dude.
coming up
Love
soon.
that guy. I can't wait to see him again. I'm gonna give him a big
Yeah.
old hug, maybe a little
Alright.
smooch.
Maybe.
All right.
Hey, when you see this episode, Aiden, that's the early one. I can't wait to give you the real one. when you come to me.
All right. Well, we are well over an hour now. I think it's a good time to sign off here. We'll report back next time how we did on our treasure cup. See if we got any Peronas. Even if I don't get any card Peronas, I have my other Perona that I take care of already.
Your dog.
Oh, very
My
cool.
dog. Yeah. Anyways, thank you so
Thank
much
you
for
guys so
listening,
much.
guys. We'll see you guys next time. Take
Peace.
care.
See you on the
Signing
next
out. Later.
episode.